Welcome back to the Berg podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And kind of doing a summer check-in here, right? We've made it past the 4th of July holiday. We've celebrated Independence Day. It seems like
45 degrees outside.
145 degrees outside. Yeah. Is that Celsius? Is that 45 Celsius?
I don't know. If you're in the state of Pennsylvania, it's hot.
I don't know the conversion, but yeah, it's hot. It's hot. And yeah, we're busy. We're adding new team members, and it just feels like it's not August yet, but it's the dog days, right?
Well, and it feels like we've brought on a good number of guys lately, and team members that are just frankly really skilled. You know, guys that are able to do the work we do. And it was a really good feeling because it's been a while, right? The labor market's been tough and it's been hard as we bring people on. We're trying to sort of stretch what their capacity is and try and get them to do more for us. And I feel like over the last month, all of a sudden, we've been able to have some good candidates that want to join us, and even they're coming from people who are on board, you know, sort of referencing their friends and making a reference and then saying, hey, you should apply here, and they apply here, and it's worked out. So it's been an exciting last month with us growing the team and adding some people that we need to get these jobs rolling.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend who works for another contractor, Weaver, and he was talking. We were talking about how busy things are during the summer. I mean, just schedule wise, trying to manage people's vacation time, letting them get the break they deserve, et cetera. And he was sort of saying the same thing. He said he felt like they were finally in a spot where, for whatever reason, they kind of felt, and I was expressing the same thing. Like we kind of felt like we had some attrition, some we expected, some we didn't expect, and but now finally seems like we're really caught some traction here with that recruiting piece and the combination of efforts between what Tori and Tracy and the team are doing to sort of help bolster the ranks in the busiest of times has felt good.
Well, something else that's weird that has no data to back it up, except for that just seeing our social media. It appears that like the team members that have been with us the longest, this is when they joined us, right? Like it wasn't the spring startup or whatever. Like it's just looking at it, what kind of struck me is that like all of our longer term team members are actually middle of summer, you know, is when they joined. Yeah. And it's kind of odd because that's not like the season when you normally think that like teams grow. You're like, oh, we got to get fired up for the spring or whatever the scenario is. But like, if you look, you know, yourself, both of your guys, Joe, like, you know, the other Justin, I think everybody was like somehow in that middle of summer, which is kind of an odd thing, but it caught my eye that it was kind of unique that like the middle of summer term seems to be good because then you kind of feel like the people are coming for the right reasons and like, you know, that kind of thing. I don't, you know, it takes time to figure that out, but it's just kind of something that I noticed that was kind of odd that I was like, oh, maybe there's something to that.
Actually, as you're talking about it, I was like, oh, what would cause that? And I'm wondering the same thing. Like, is it a seasonality thing, right? So like people coming in early spring, maybe wherever they were was slow and they're looking for something, or coming at the end of the season, maybe we worked longer into the season than some other people or something like that. So you do see maybe more fluctuation in those time periods. But yeah, you're right. A lot of the folks who have joined us in kind of that like late May to August timeframe, I mean, obviously there's exceptions to that, but it seems like a big growth period for us. Yeah.
You know, no proof or reason why, but it just caught my eye the other day. I was like, wait, of all of the real tenured people that have been here a long time, this has been the season that is actually, you know, worked well for them to hang out and stay around for being part of the team. So don't know why.
That's interesting. Yeah. Sort of like they were already working, decided, you know, to leave where they were most likely to come here. And, you know, and that choice maybe had some bearing in it. You know, it's because everybody's running. That's the thing. As you get out there, there's a lot of jobs running. There's a lot of work on the street. All the companies are busy, you know, and it's been fun. The last 2 weeks, I've really made an effort to get into the field a little bit more than I had. Just pick my head up, as Ford says, right? Pick your head up and sort of look at where we are and try and assess how everybody's doing and talk to the people, see what everybody needs and how they're feeling. And it's been neat to get out there and see them. I mean, I sent Ford a couple pictures from up north at Brad's, and they were just, I mean, they were rolling. They had every piece of equipment was running. There was two pieces not running, and we were working on both of them. The mechanics are there working on both of them in the field. All the rest of the stuff's running. And that was fun to see. And then I was down at Longwood, and like polar opposites of our work scope, right? I mean, like
right.
you couldn't get more of the commercial side than Longwood. It's just so tight and so much going on. And then Brad's just wide open. But Longwood, I'm walking around and it's crazy. There's plants in the building. There's, a lot of the concrete going in, all the ponds are going in. It's starting to look like what it's going to be when people go to visit it when it's done. It's neat to see. But it's also, we're walking around and then, you see what the team has to deal with. And they're really good about it, and they're, I think what we are going to gain from Longwood long-term will probably be the biggest, knowledge increase that we've had maybe since we went into landfills. I mean, that much is going to be gained by the team that's going to come out of there. It's just going to have so much experience in how to deal with owners, how to deal with GCs, how to deal with other trades, how to deal with tough contract conditions. They've learned a lot of lessons. And when I'm down there, one of the things I get to see now is how much better we are at dealing with it now 2.5 years in than we were 6 months in. We would have felt better about the job at 6 months, but it was because we didn't realize. But at this point, we know what it is. But it's been really interesting to watch the team just, one of the things that got me forward was that you and I didn't even talk about this. So we're walking around and Dylan, Stetson, and I, and then a couple representatives from Longwood and Reed Hildebrandt and whatnot. And I could feel that I wanted to be in an argument. Like I just was aggravated with his position. I didn't like their position. I didn't think it was reasonable. And I was ready to argue. And I just sort of watched Dylan move me away from the situation without anybody realizing. And he was like, well, let's talk about this. Let's look at this, like in an opportune moment when nobody was near me. And as we walked away, I was like, I want to get in an argument. He was like, I do. I don't think it's going to benefit us right now. And I was like, okay. So I walked away and they went on to look at the next thing. And then, Stetson came down and I was talking to Stetson and Dylan afterwards. And Stetson told me what happened. I was like, it's a good thing I wasn't there because I'd have just blown up. That would be ridiculous. And he was like, yeah, but we told him we weren't going to do it and why it was unreasonable and why it was not even acceptable, from a legal standpoint. We can't do what you're asking us to do. And it was, they were asking that we go outside the LOD because they don't like the grading outside the LOD. And Stetson was just like, no, like if you'd like to do that, you're going to need to do all the work to get your permit expanded so that we can work outside that LOD. Otherwise it is what it is. And when we're done, you can do the work to clean it up and fix it with someone. So it was really neat just in that little moment to see them choosing which battles they were going to fight based on what they thought they could do, and my argument would have not been beneficial to them, but It was just, I wanted to stand up for them, but they stood up for themselves. So that was really neat to see.
Yeah. It's been not that we had, inexperienced people there, but it's been like a maturing experience for sure in regards to the way that project's progressed. And
well, it's something that, a lot of people don't see. And I don't know if I told this story on the podcast too, but like there is a perfect example of that the work that gets done isn't relevant to the people that write the contracts, right? Like I always tell this story. I knew a guy, he had more people on his team than we do. And it was him and his wife as his secretary. Like that's how they ran the thing. And now we have such a big administrative staff in relationship to him and his wife. And we don't have a huge one, but we have a big one because the paperwork is now, like the actual work is a separate piece. Like it's just how interesting how it's changed and become so litigious and other things. But, in the old days it was like, go out, dig a hole. Okay. I have 3 machines there tomorrow. We're going to get it done. And now it's just changed into a different type of thing where it's like, they're doing a lot of crazy good work down there, but the stuff that matters to the people that we report to isn't related to that. That's just a different animal. And we see it more and more everywhere. It's not, and really the trick is to marry the two together the best you can, because that's the most successful project, is figuring out a way to marry the actual work that needs to get done with the paperwork. Because in the old days, the dirt drove how things were. It's like, oh, well, we're wanting to do this at 342. Well, you got an extra so many yards of dirt. We're going to do it at 345 and just made the ground work to what was in the, and now, no, it's going to be at 342 because that's what they wanted. So that flexibility has kind of transitioned out in a lot of things we do nowadays.
Yeah. And it's got to be both, right? I mean, the quality still has to be there.
Right.
Otherwise, the contract is more relevant.
Right.
So, yeah. Interesting.
And the plans, the same thing. It ties together with that. It's like the adjustments that used to be made. Like, I still remember, this was years ago, but we had this one engineer and he was really good. But he said, listen, like, make it work in the field and then we'll as build it. And if it's different than what I put in my paper, like, cool, but your boots on the ground, I'm just drawing it, And it's like, but now that doesn't quite.
You don't get that as much. Right? Yeah.
No, I think you will again, quite honestly. I mean, I don't think this is a one-way road necessarily, but I think it's a generational thing, and not in the way we normally speak of it, but I mean in terms of turnover, that you had a lot of really seasoned engineers who knew what they were doing and sort of been there. Mm-hmm. And then you have a lot of engineers that are younger that are coming in, and same thing with some of the companies being younger and all the pieces. And so they need to develop sort of a comfort level where they get back to that point and it really becomes what we talk about when, we talk about doing work that we know in places that we know with people that we know. And I think it really becomes important with that, who you're working with. That's we had a small job recently that we gave them a number. They we've done a bunch of work at this place, and most of it like back of the notepad. You know what I mean? The engineer is an engineer we really do well with. He would draw it up and say, like, we need you to roughly do this. We'd say, okay, we can make that work. We'd say, this is how it's going to have to work. Very similar to what Ford said. And so we gave them a number, and the number was higher than they thought it would be. Mm. And so they said, well, we're gonna get a check number on you. I said, okay. And they got a check number, and the check number was right with us, but a little bit higher, not by much. And so they said, well, we're going to stick with you. And it was actually a real benefit, because you think about it, like the owner got to say, like, they had no check on us.
Sure.
We advised this was the best way to do it.
Yep.
The engineer agreed. And then they said, okay, but we don't know if we want to pay this for it. And then they go check, and the guy says, this is the way I would do it, and this is what it would cost. And it's just slightly higher than us, and even if it was slightly lower, it wouldn't really worry me that much, because it's not,
Sure.
That's not the game. The game is, this isn't public bid. I'm not trying to beat you by $1.
Well, and you were being honest.
I'm just trying to give you the number that it's going to cost for us to do
right.
it.
Yeah. You weren't trying to beat somebody up. Yeah. You weren't trying to take advantage of the relationship.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to juice the number, but I also wasn't trying to, get as skinny as we could to get there. I was saying, this is what it costs to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And we'll get it done. And I think that long term, that may be the most beneficial thing that will happen in that relationship over a course of a couple of years, is that when they checked, we were giving them a solid number. Now they're big projects, they're still going to bid. Sure. But, it's, and that was, I'm not even sure if that was commercial or, because it was right. That was one of those jobs that's right on the border of what special projects would handle versus what the commercial side would handle. And I actually think we bid it commercially, and we're going to do it special projects.
Okay.
So we have a few of those jobs that are running where, at one point there was no division, right? It was just Ford running the company. And then at some point we realized we needed to divide it. But as we've grown, that's another thing that's really happened for it, is there's some lines that are crossing over, whether it be Justin coming out of landfill and going into commercial,
right.
And that's not to say Justin's now a commercial foreman forever. It's just to say we're able to blur those lines a little better, I think, because we have an understanding and the team's stronger, so they can really do any of the pieces based on what's needed and what the schedule calls for.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Which is exciting.
I agree.
Blurred Lines by, was it Robin Thicke or whatever that name was back in the day?
Well, Pharrell? I think, I think that was actually by like Marvin Gaye or something.
Yeah,
the original.
Oh, okay.
And they stole that outright.
Yeah.
They couldn't even win that in a court case.
Just a re-recording of it.
But the heat is another thing, though. I was whether it be, I was down the shore because it's summer in the summer.
Celebrating?
I did celebrate my birthday.
You had a thing happen? I
am older. Listen, I surfed and I skimboarded on my birthday. It made no difference. I am fine. But it has been a really weird summer down there in terms of the ocean. Like, we talk about all this, we talk about stuff with the climate and everything, but there's some things that are just how the earth runs.
Sure.
And it's been crazy. The ocean's really cold. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, it dropped down to 54. 54 is like winter temperatures on the Jersey Shore. It doesn't get much lower than the 40s.
Yeah, wow.
And so it's created this like fog at times and a really cool breeze off the ocean. But I had called Ford a couple weeks ago because I went down and it was so cold, like you could have a blanket outside of my house, and it was like 90s. I called Ford. I was like, "Is it cooled off at home?" And he was like, "No." And then I think it was last week I told Ford the girls called me and they said, "Is there a nice breeze in Pennsylvania?" I said, "No." It was a gusts of like 2 miles an hour, and they were the same thing. And it has been interesting because when you're down there, you hear people talking about being back home, and even there was that thunderstorm that was supposed to come through, and they were worried about it down the shore, and it didn't hit. And then I talked to the guys, and they were like, "We got pounded. I lost power at my house in Pennsylvania," and but it's been weird with the climates because it has been so hot in Pennsylvania and just nasty humid. It's been tough conditions for the guys.
And dry, because usually,
Yeah.
from historical experience, you get a couple hot days like this.
Then
You're going to have a storm.
Thunderstorm comes through.
Comes through and breaks it. We've had storms and it hasn't broken anything. Like it's just the next day it's back at it. Like it is truly a different, different summer.
And it feels like timing wise, from like the storms come through, like they come through in the middle of the night real quick when the temperatures are already down, or like, I don't know. It's interesting because you're right. We never
feel that like go out and it's 10 degrees cooler and the humidity just cut. It just doesn't seem to happen right now.
Yeah. Well, that's what's crazy is they're not, the summer you always think of the humidity rises and then it reaches a certain point,
boiling point,
thunderstorm. Okay. And then it cools off and then it builds back up again. And that's the path.
That's right.
But this year it's been like 97% humidity and nothing happens. And then a storm blows through. And then even one of the storms a couple of days ago, I remember, I don't know the totals that they got at Bratz, but it was bad.
Oh, a lot?
A lot. Fast. But Longwood got a half an inch in 20 minutes. That's a lot of rain in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
5 miles away at another site, Bancroft had relayed to me, they had 1.6 inches in 35 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
That's like somebody dumping a bucket of water on you. Like it was, and it's been, it's so odd because it's the same storm. It wasn't like multiple storms, and then that storm tracked north through Vermont and just dismantled Vermont. I mean, Vermont lost like my uncle lives up there and they lost, I think, like 17 bridges in like a 12 square mile area. Like every bridge that crossed the river got blown out and it just blew out roads. And they said it just came down all at once, just poured. And when when you get into those high elevations, the mountains convey all the water to one place. Like, in New Jersey, especially PA to some degree, the infiltration is important. Up there, that's not the problem. They have plenty of infiltration. What they don't have is space. It's all canyons, and rivers and gaps. And so the water comes down so fast and just blew everything out. But it was that same storm.
We know the funny part with that. So Sunday I was just driving on the turnpike and we got one of those heavy hitters, right? And so it was bad. Most people were like pulling off the road. It wasn't that bad, but whatever. But I was heading west and two things happened. One is...
That was your first mistake.
Yeah. Trying to get home. One was I was talking to Tamara and she's like, "Oh, we're going to go swimming." So literally I was in King of Prussia area and it was pouring and you know what I mean? It was so, like you're saying, spotty.
Isolated.
Yeah.
But then the second thing happened was mud from all the construction doing there was actually out on the road and the eastbound traffic was dead stop because of the mud coming out.
Oh, jeez.
And from all of us in construction, doesn't matter whose project it is, you never want to see that because you just understand that it doesn't matter how much E&S you put up. It doesn't matter all those things. They're only built to handle a certain quantity. And when it gets more than that, they get overwhelmed. But to the average person, it looks like something failed. And it didn't fail. It got overwhelmed. There's a difference there. But you see it and you just feel bad because you know that contractor, whoever it is going to get an earful from somebody.
They got a mess to clean
right.
up.
And they really did everything that they were required to do. It's just that the volume in the time frame was unmanageable.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing about that, Ford, is 3 days earlier, I called you driving by the same thing coming east. And I said to him, do you remember this? I said, "You got to see this. You could barely see across the turnpike." I was like, there's not really anything they can do. I know they have their water trucks there. They're running them, but the exact same condition, but in the reverse.
Right.
You can't control the dust because it's 97 degrees with a high humidity. You're putting the water down, but it's drying out real fast. You're trying to run and it's a big site that we're talking about. Moving a lot of dirt. And then 3 days later, they got water running across the turnpike. It's a no-win situation in this. When you get into this sort of a situation with the weather, if you put down water, I'd actually made a joke to Gary. I told you that I made a joke to Gary. I called Gary after that storm and I said, hey, we talked about that you needed me to figure out something with the water truck. I figured it out. I sent it up last night. He was like, it poured here last night. I was like, you're welcome.
Yep. Taken care of.
Taken care of. No
for
dust
at least
today.
6 hours, right?
No dust today.
Yeah.
Once you put your blade in the ground, it'll disappear.
It'll get
But for
dusty
right now
again,
on
yeah.
top, it's good.
Yes, the spottiness is funny. Like, I don't know. I feel like at our house, we're like kind of in the valley, and like so much of it goes right around us, never touches us. And I've probably had half an inch in the last 3 weeks at my house. And we get like 5-10 minutes of real heavy rain. I know because it blows everything out in the basin, but it is dry by the morning. It's like it never happened.
Yeah, we get a lot of wind. Like when you're talking like microclimate like that, for me, because of I'm sitting like sort of in between two little ridges.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of wind, so we lose power a fair amount because very close to my house. I mean, in the past probably 4 months, I've lost power probably 4 times.
Really? Mm.
And every one of them, I saw the tree. Like the tree came down. It was within a half a mile of my house.
Something else that's funny about that, because we've had some power issues at the office here, and it's like, at this point, power is less relevant than the internet for what we do for a living, which we're in construction. That should not be that way. But literally, like, either they both can be out, but if there's power but no internet, it's actually less functional than, it's just crazy how that has transitioned in, kind of talk about like those companies that ran differently back in the day. But literally, like, if we don't have internet access, so much SaaS stuff and all the things that we run for different products, it's just as crippling as not having power.
Well, and not only that, but like you think about the handful of people we have that remote in from, being on site, project managers, etc. And no internet, no network connection.
Right.
Like, so it's not like they could be fine wherever they are and still get access to it. But
yeah, that with one of the times that happened recently, they were, we had lost the internet. I think the power came back on, right? And then we had some sort of regional outage.
Yeah. So
regional outage right over top of us.
It was within a couple of days of each other, right? So they're like power outage here for like 8 or 10 hours, right? And there was only like 140 like buildings that were impacted, and we were one of them. Yeah. And then 2 days later, the internet was kind of spotty. I called. There's like, yep, no problem. Like, it's fixed. And then the next day, out.
Yeah, dead.
Yeah.
Because that first day, my cell phone wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like, it was impacting the towers. We noticed our cell phones weren't working. And one of the PMs was working remotely, and he was like, well, I'm just going to work from home. I was like, you can't, because now the server's not working.
Right. Yeah.
You can't access our server.
You can't get to the information.
You can't get to the information.
But I mean,
he said to me, he said, I kind of miss the days of pencil and the paper now. I was like, yeah.
Well, I was actually thinking about it because I heard that, I don't even know if it's true, but I was talking to someone was talking about Houston because they got after that storm.
Right.
And they were like 2 weeks without power down there. Like, I mean, that's the interesting thing of it. Like when we have really big things, like I remember years ago, we had like 4 or 5 days without it. And my dad like hooked up a inverter off a car to keep like at least the refrigerator running and stuff like that. And we're using candles for everything. And now it's like, it's such an inconvenience if it's 2 or 4 hours because you're like, okay, I just can't quite do this or do that or whatever. But I mean, imagine like 2-3 weeks without juice.
No,
like,
I mean,
the thing is, for work, it'd be really hard to imagine. But I do think there is a similarity to what we talked about a couple podcasts or a while ago about snow. That if it's going to snow, it was a conversation I think I had with Brad. If it's going to snow, then snow. Like, let it snow 18 inches, 20, shut everything down.
Sure.
Yeah. And then, okay, we're not going to be able to work for a few days because it snows. But when it snows, 4 to 6 inches, everybody's like, well, and why won't you be at the dirt sites tomorrow? Like, well, the guys just had to work 30 hours. They don't get it. And I think there's a similar thing. Like if power was just outright off or you lost connectivity for a week, everybody would know it, and they'd be like, well, what are they going to do? You know what I mean? I don't know what would happen exactly. They'd be less accepting, but if you don't have it in a big area, what are you going to do? Like a hurricane tornado scenario. Whereas when it goes down for 6-8 hours, or like
for 140 properties,
nobody even knows. They're just, why are you not answering your phone?
Yeah.
Why can't you guys get anything done?
You shut the whole office down. Everyone go on vacation for today.
Yeah. Well, in Houston, it was funny. We had a company that we did some work for, and they were supposed to have sent a check, and he actually texted me and he said, you know, as soon as power's back up in Houston, we'll get everything together and get all the stuff out to you. I didn't think about it that they were in Houston because it's a local job. But then he eventually got back to us, but he said, once power comes on and we have internet, then we can access our system. Then we can cut the check. But until then, we can't cut the check. And it's funny. It was that exact scenario. Cause I said to Brian, I was like, there's not really anything I can do. Like he can't do anything. His system's locked down.
Just do what you can.
Yeah.
So. Well, that's probably a decent place to wrap it up. I'm not sure what we talked about.
Good random spot.
Yeah. It's hot.
Yeah, it is hot. We're getting a lot of work done. We've got new team members.
And somehow we've got snow in the middle of July.
We got snow in
Talk
July.
about snow in July.
Yeah, so,
That'd be something.
yeah, we snuck the beach in there. Yeah. So, and Dan's birthday.
Yeah.
Couldn't go without being mentioned. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you come back for another episode.